Hello, I'm SurferClock, and welcome to What's the Attraction, where our work is your vacation. I apologize for my colleague's absence. TAP-G's never really listened to the king of pop's music, so before today's episode, I encouraged TAP-G to go out and listen to a few Michael Jackson CDs before doing today's show. After all, you can't talk about the classic Epcot attraction Captain EO without knowing the three genius minds behind it: Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, and of course, Michael Joseph Jackson. But he left about 2 hours ago, and honestly, I'm getting kind of worried. But, on with the show, I guess. So, yeah. Captain EO. In 1984... there you are. Where have you been?
Oh, you don't want to know. You really don't want to know.
Did you get those CDs I told you to get?
Oh, yeah. And I was listening to them on my laptop down at Starbucks.
And? What did you think?
Let's see, I listened to Bad, Smooth Criminal, Thriller, We Can Change the World, Black and White, Beat It. Then some girl peeked over my shoulder and went all fangirl Michael Jackson on me. I told her the songs were okay, but I didn't see what the big deal was. So she announced it to the whole coffee shop. In addition to being barred for life from that Starbucks, have you ever had 24 piping hot lattes and espressos come flying at you?
No. Can't say I have. So why did it take you so long?
I had to shake a throng of moonwalkers. Jeez, those guys can motor backwards when they really need to. Just try to picture that one, folks. An angry crowd moonwalking after...
Anyway, a mob chased you around town because you weren't that impressed with Michael Jackson?
Does that surprise you? When it was about 2008, Michael Jackson was a national punchline. His eccentric lifestyle, his multiple facial surgeries, and certainly not least of which his highly controversial court cases. When I was a kid, the only song of Michael Jackson's I heard, at least consciously, was the one he did for Free Willy, and that was because we owned the VHS. For most of my life, Jackson was barely a blip on my radar. I didn't love him or hate him. I didn't even know who he was. But when he died in 2009, the world went nuts. The man who nobody liked suddenly became a god in the eyes of the public. In 2008, he was the creepy, pale, no-nose recluse. In 2009, he became a genius who revolutionized the music industry and the most downloaded artist of 2009.
Well, you may have been living under a rock for 20 plus years. I'm not exactly a fan per se, but I do like his music. I love Thriller. That's a classic, bar none.
Oh, okay. So some of his songs remain hits after a couple of decades. But has the 3D film Captain EO stood the test of time? Hey, settle down. We want to legitimately analyze this. So keep that cursor away from the email link. For now.
In 1984, Disney Imagineering wasn't exactly at its strongest. Epcot Center, which opened less than 2 years earlier, was originally Walt's pet project of a visionary utopian society. Instead, it became a theme park with tributes to 1980s technology and honors 9 pavilions of different countries. I can see the connection, can't you?
That same year, Disney's board of directors got a massive shakeup. Walt Disney had been dead for almost 20 years, and the company suffered multiple shifts in regime from several different executives who, unfortunately, kept asking the same question over and over. What would Walt have done? As a result, the theme park entertainment became safe, homogenized, and boring. When Michael Eisner and Frank Wells took over, they were determined to shake things up and hard. Especially since by the late 70s, public perception of Disney was looked upon as kid stuff. Teenagers stayed away in droves. Something was desperately needed to make Disney hip and cool again. And what better way to do it than with an internationally acclaimed pop star, a Jedi Master, and the Godfather's Godfather?
Eisner roped in George Lucas, fresh off the success of Return of the Jedi, and Francis Ford Coppola, who had just wrapped up production on Rip Van Winkle. And Jackson, well, we all know how well his 1982 album Thriller did, and Bad, which came out after Captain EO debuted. With these three at work, production began. It was Coppola who came up with the title EO, named for the Greek goddess of light, Eos.
Captain EO became the first attraction at Disney to utilize 3D effects, like hydraulic seats, lasers, spritzers, and smoke. These effects were designed by Rusty Lemorandi?
The production executive for Caddyshack.
Yeah, him.
Anyway, his groundbreaking techniques in Captain EO earned him the moniker the father of 4D. Though innovative, it came with a hefty price tag at almost $30 million. James Horner, the legendary composer of such cinematic greats as Titanic, Apollo 13, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Field of Dreams, A Beautiful Mind, Avatar, and The Rocketeer, composed the attraction's score.
Captain EO opened at Epcot on September 12, 1986, then in Disneyland on September 18th, in Tokyo Disneyland on March 20th of the following year, then in Disneyland Paris in April of 1992. The shows were an immediate success, but by 1994, the shows had run their course and Captain EO was replaced by Honey, I Shrunk the Audience in response to the impressive popularity of the first movie.
Captain EO remained a curious piece of Disney theme park history. Gradually throughout the 90s, the other three Captain EO shows closed down in favor for newer shows. But in 2009, something changed. Something really big changed. Michael Jackson passed away at the age of 50 while planning his epic world tour as a comeback after years of little new music. And as TAP-G already mentioned, the world came to recognize what a genius Michael Jackson was. And Disney wanted to contribute.
In February of 2010, the Disneyland Resort opened the Captain EO tribute in Tomorrowland, and it was met with a warm reception of fans and well-wishers. Disneyland Paris got theirs back the following June, Tokyo's on July 1st, and Epcot on July 2nd, 2010, tossing aside the Zelensky family.
What's the story? Well, sometime in the far-off reaches of space...
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away...
Oh, shut up. Anyway, Captain EO, Jackson himself, and his ragtag motley puppet crew, consisting of Idie, Odie, Majordomo, Minordomo, Fuzzball, and Hooter. Hooter's the clumsy one who always messes up the crew's missions, like eating the map. Uh-oh, Hooter!
The crew crash land on a distant mechanized planet that's so dismal, the trash compactor in Star Wars A New Hope looks like a McDonald's play place by comparison. They step out into... Uh-oh, Hooter! A garbage can doesn't go on your head! Well, the crew get captured and brought before the Supreme Leader, played by Angelica Houston.
Why are they on such a dystopian civilization? Apparently they're on a peaceful mission to bring a gift to the Supreme Leader, but the vindictive Queen sentences the crew to being turned into garbage cans and EO to 100 years of torture. But EO presents his gift of music, naturally. But... Hooter! You broke the instruments and now you put your friends in mortal peril!
Of course, the music saves EO's butt by turning all the guards into backup dancers as he sings, "We are here to change the world." The music revitalizes the people, the landscape, and even the Supreme Leader into a lush Grecian paradise. While singing Another Part of Me, EO and his friends leave the happy citizens to their party and fly off into... Hooter! That's the self-destruct button!
That doesn't happen!
Okay, fine. That said, what's your spin on the show?
Well, first things first, and I want to get this out of the way right away. We're not given too much context other than, this is the adventures of Captain EO and his crew in space.
Definitely.
Without much context, it can be a little tough to get into. But if you're willing to stick with it, and make your way through all of the strange stuff that goes on, you actually get to see some pretty cool 3D effects. I think they still work, more or less. Some of them don't really hold up that well, but I think they can be excused, especially for the time.
Mm-hmm.
The story, the story's a little loose, and it really just tries to get to the music. But, I mean, this is made to sort of to show off Michael Jackson's amazing choreographic skills, and you get to see the moonwalk. What could be cooler than that? For audiences at the time, of course, this was a revolutionary thing. Some of them hadn't seen him do it on TV. Mm-hmm. So they got to see him do the moonwalk. That's so cool.
This came out right after MTV came out.
That it did. But this is another way for lots of fans around the world to get to see it. In that sense, the story can kind of be forgiven if you look at it as less of, say, an experience that's supposed to have a great story, and more like the lead up to a real weird 80s sort of music video. And that's the thing. This show is very weird, very 80s. I mean, from the clothes to the glowy effects. This is the quintessential 80s music video given a 3D, presentation. It's Michael Jackson at his prime, and the last 6 minutes of the show are incredible, even still. I think that part still holds up. Mm-hmm. But that part arguably deserves more to be on MTV than it does to be showcased at a theme park you've paid $100 a person to get into.
Yeah.
As far for me for the show, I think it's worth checking out at least once. Now, TAP-G, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's just say that I'm really glad you were able to get all your good stuff out of the way, because unfortunately, mine is substantially smaller.
Okay.
My first introduction to Captain EO had to be the Family Guy episode where Peter and Stewie go to Disney World, and there's that brief little clip I'm not going to go into much detail on, but that gave me kind of an introduction that I hadn't really seen before. I know people had talked about it, and then when they brought it back, it was huge. People were like, oh, Captain EO's back. I'm like, okay, I gotta go see this. I gotta go see what people were so excited about. When the show was over, the lights came up, I sat there and I thought, this was what people were crying over? I was so disappointed, I couldn't put it into words.
Really?
I couldn't get it. What was about this piece of 80s schlock that just appealed to people so much? So once I started watching it again, I really tried to take a critical eye into it.
Just to kind of stop, TAP-G and I actually both went and saw the show very shortly before we did this review.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I noticed was that Hooter is the single most obnoxious alien since Jar Jar Binks.
Worst sidekick ever.
He doesn't do anything. He doesn't contribute anything. And what did you say? He doesn't even talk in the first few moments. He just makes funny elephant congestion noises. And then when he does talk, he doesn't even have a mouth. It's just like a narrative voice in the background.
Yeah, it's really fuzzy, actually. Fuzzier than even Fuzzball.
Yeah.
But the voice, when you do finally hear it, it does make you wonder, well, what was he doing the first 3 minutes of this thing?
Yeah. And even the rest of the crew, they're clearly there as just like pseudo-labyrinth Muppets to make Michael Jackson look better. At least that's how I saw it.
I suppose.
Angelica Houston. I give her props for having fun with what she was given, but I have never seen anyone chew the scenery so much as her.
Well,
do you think me beautiful? She reminded me a lot of Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove, like a very Eartha Kitt fashion.
Yes.
The story. You're a big story guy.
Sure.
I try to figure out what was going on with the story because there are two things that bother me. Number one, they are on a peaceful mission to bring a gift to the Supreme Leader, and yet they have a homing device? Even when the Supreme Leader says, "You are infesting my planet, you're corrupting it." It's like, what?
Now, to in the story's defense, I think that homing beacon could have been put there as sort of almost a trap, and
it's a trap!
Thank you, Akbar. But I think that Commander Bog may have seen that homing beacon and may have sent them on that mission without knowing that they were intending to trap the crew.
Maybe. I think that's kind of flimsy, but maybe. I'll give you points for that.
It's all a lead up to a music video, as I said before.
That's one other thing that I couldn't stand. It reminds me a lot of Napoleon Dynamite.
Really?
For most of the show, both EO and Napoleon Dynamite, it's just whimsical moments of, "Aw, isn't that funny? He's kind of cute." And then at the end, holy cow, they're dancing!
Well, to be fair, Napoleon Dynamite was kind of a long movie. You had to sit through almost 80 minutes of that direct before you finally got to the dance.
Yeah.
Whereas this was only 17 minutes. So
yeah.
It's excusable.
I guess. And then ultimately, the message is completely botched. Okay, what's the message of Captain EO?
That music is a universal language that, when spoken, can change the world.
That's a great message. I'm all for that. But when I saw it, what I saw was, this world is ugly. We're going to give it music so we can change it in our own image. Yeah, that sounds familiar and a really bad idea. If they had done something like showing the aliens and what their music was and then uniting the music to make even better music, that would have been a much better message. Although, granted, if Lucas is involved, it probably would have just been the Cantina music.
Yeah.
So, but that's what really threw me, and I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Now, I do see kind of what you're saying. I do see a little bit of sort of assimilation going on, especially when Jackson's throwing his magic powers around, and it's turning the inhabitants of that planet into backup dancers.
Yeah, and so they're backup dancers to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
To me, it just sounds like they're infringing their music upon this alien world that isn't really that necessary. Because this world, it doesn't seem like they're bothering anybody.
Well, they are turning anyone who comes there into trash cans.
So people stay away. What's the problem with that? Ultimately,
I don't know. You want to ask the supreme leader?
I'm tempted to, believe me. And now you probably want to know, since I'm not a fan of Michael Jackson, what do I think of the music? Simply put, okay. I watched the video on YouTube about a half hour ago, and I listened to the music. I forgot the tunes to these songs entirely. I mean, that doesn't happen when you're on Small World or Carousel of Progress. And here it's just like, oh, they were Michael Jackson songs. What were they about? I don't remember the titles of the songs.
Well, I mean, we mentioned them. We're here to change the world and another part of me.
Okay, yeah, but they're very forgettable to me. The effects. Oh, sorry, what?
The music. It's very typically Michael Jackson. It's very, there's no other way I could describe it, really. It's so typically Michael Jackson. It's even got the woo and come on.
If there's fans out there that are diehard Michael Jacksons that want to show me just how wrong I am, I invite your comments and your emails and any feedback you can give me to show me just how horribly wrong I am, because I really want to know what I'm missing.
Sure.
The effects, they hold up, I guess, but there's a moment like where minor and major domo turn into instruments, and I'm like, oh, Tim Burton could do a better job than this.
But then again, this was literally like, I would say, almost 9 years before Nightmare.
And that's exactly my problem. This is 1980s, and they brought this back, and they updated it so they could present it to the public. But they didn't update anything about it other than, it's like they said, this film strip itself is precious. Let's give it to the audience as is. They didn't even bother trying to update it for today's audiences who look at this and go, I don't get it. Like me.
Sure.
Ultimately, I just asked, if Disney had brought this back for about 3 months engagement after Michael Jackson's death, I would have been fine with this. It's been 3 years now since Michael Jackson passed away, and Disney still has it. There's rumors that it's going to get changed out into a Phineas and Ferb attraction, I guess.
That's a possibility.
And I'm all for that, even if Phineas and Ferb does become dated in just about 5 years or so. But I'm sorry, I tried to enjoy this, and I could not find anything redeemable about it. I have to give it a 1 out of 5.
A 1 out of 5.
Even with Stitch's Great Escape, at least I get a thrill watching the animatronic itself. But here, it was just an uninteresting, boring, schlocky experience. What did you give it?
I went ahead and gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Wow, a lot better than I did.
Yeah, I feel like I see more of the optimism with it, and I can appreciate the nostalgia factor.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I wasn't exactly born when the show came out. So that is a 3.5 out of 5 from SurferClock, and a 1 out of 5 from TAP-G.
And I'm sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. Captain EO offers assistive listening and reflective captioning for the hearing impaired. For the visually impaired, audio description is offered. Scooters and wheelchairs are all welcome, and as always, children must be at least 7 to go alone, and those younger must be accompanied by someone at least 14 or older.
Would anyone enjoy Captain EO? Sure. The owner of Starbucks, the girl at Starbucks, a certain throng of moonwalkers.
In other words, Michael Jackson fans?
I was going to say crazy people, but tomato, tomato.
Disorderly conduct, that's 20 minutes in the corner.
Aww.
Yes, Michael Jackson fans will enjoy this show. It came out at a time when he was still white-hot and relatively decent-looking, and those fans of Lucas or Coppola will appreciate this little side project. But I say the average parkgoer will still find plenty to enjoy with it as well. It's upbeat, fun, scary at times, but leaves you with a sense of appreciation. It's not a huge headline or extravaganza, but it is a fun piece of nostalgia. A 3D show for everybody. Well, I think that's all we have. TAP-G, do you have anything nice to say before we sign off?
Dude, I was looking up a Where Are They Now on the crew of Captain EO. It says here Hooters a high-ranking senator since his short stint at BP.
And you're done. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm SurferClock and he's TAP-G, and we're What's the Attraction, where our work is your vacation.
It also says in June of 2013 he was called to testify for the IRS scandal. Hooter!